Oh yeah.
Rock
Oh
and
yeah.
roll.
It's what it's really all about. Um,
Yeah.
so what we haven't told our
Feel
audience
that
yet,
love.
yeah, I know our audience thinks that this is going to be a coffee talk episode, but actually, what it really is Leonard and are now started our new DJ 1980s music channel, and from now on, that's all you're going to hear from us. We're going to talk about each episode. We're going to talk about one song that was awesome in the 80s. We're not going to totally copy Rick Beato or thing like that,
Oh, you
but
watch
maybe a
it?
little bit. I totally watch him. He's the bomb,
Oh,
dude.
what?
Yeah, yeah, he's the
Cool.
best. He's the
Fuck yeah.
best.
Hey,
And so
huh?
it's Telcos. Yeah. Um, so yeah, we'll each week we're just going to talk about music instead. Leonard's going to play some tunes. We'll give you the backstory of the band, the song, what the time frame,
Yeah.
and it'll be broadcast live on TikTok because I know that's where everybody
Yeah.
actually is.
And actually, if you want to help out YouTube, just do remixes of our episodes because we have usually have about an hour of stuff. You can just go into our channel, pick any of the episodes that we have, and you can do a little remix, a 1 minute remix. And probably one of the reasons why our podcast doesn't have a gajillion viewers and listeners and subscribers is simply because we're an hour long and people's attention span, get this, is 15 seconds. That is
It's like a
all
like a
the
gold
attention
like
that
a
we
goldfish.
Yes. And then here's the sad thing. What has created a quote unquote revolution in AI? Attention. It's all about attention.
Oh wow!
We as humans are losing it, and we are giving it to generative AI in the form of HBM 3 and eventually 4. And so, yeah, this is the dynamic that we're living in,
Wow!
where
Wow!
Yeah, but before we get started, remember to take us seriously at your own risk. We have offloaded all of it onto you because we are memory bound, right? And we just want to focus on the compute.
We're IO bound.
Yeah, that too. That too. Yeah, because we're getting old. We're IO bound.
Yeah.
Over time, it doesn't get the scaling laws don't work for us. It goes the other way.
Exactly.
Like descaling, like what you have to do with your coffee maker.
Like descaling your coffee maker. So what was the song you were just playing? It was Van Halen.
Tonight. Yeah.
Yes, I remember that song. That's some good stuff,
Coffee talk. Yeah.
That's what Coffee Talk's all about, a lot heavy Van Halen, a little bit of IoT. And then a whole lot of nothing else, actually. That's why Mr. Vasquez is on here, because he's the only smart person in the room,
No, I think my job is to say something that's actually IoT related, like our friends at Kaigen doing a deal with Vodafone for iSIM.
Well,
because some penny pincher figured out man, if we remove this physical SIM and just put this thing, right out of, manufacturing, we're going to save a couple of cents per unit. And since the estimates still say 50 billion by, next week.
Whatever. Next week. Yeah.
Yeah. 50 billion times a couple of cents and we're off to the races. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So we're getting more margin per unit there. This sounds like economics. And
but I think for those of us and those of the audience that a long time ago would buy an IoT device with cellular SIM capabilities, and your telco rep who didn't really care about your business tells you, oh, just activate them and put them on the shelf, and then your bill goes from 0 to tens or hundreds of thousands, but you have no customers because this thing is in a warehouse.
That's right.
Things like iSIM resolve this, right? Because it's pre-integrated. You can preload these things in the SIM management console of your choice, in this case, Vodafone and Kaigen's. And when you ship it to Ryan's dog, who's the end user, then you can commence the subscription, and everybody wins.
And Ryan would know a lot about this because he used to work in that business with
Yes.
pre-activating phones for people, and running up their bill.
Yeah.
Which time? Yeah. I was at Sprint when they launched what was it, WiMAX with the 4G?
Yeah, why?
Yeah, baby.
I was in Kalamazoo, Western Michigan at the time, one of the first campuses. Oh, before that network got congested, oh my gosh. It was amazing. Our devices weren't even capable of taking advantage of how fast the data plans were. On Sprint, you didn't have the iPhone when the 4G
Right.
the 4G came out, right?
Yeah.
So we're dealing with like Samsung devices and LG devices, but like, yeah.
Wow.
It's a rough, and it's the cellular business. It's still a tough game out there when it comes to IoT. A lot of people are still experiencing a lot of pain. You're trying to predict, like they're still trying to manage sizing different data plans and then pre-activating and then dealing with, if you're dealing with a solution provider who's shipping SIMs activated to their customers, or maybe they're sitting on shelf. There's so many issues with provisioning and tool sets and things like that when it comes to cellular. It's a tough business.
We as an industry, we make it complex on purpose.
Yeah.
Because some of these things could be avoided. The one complex one, like it's in my top one, that it's a regulatory issue and not so much there's some countries that if a SIM from a non-native network comes in, even on a $0, €0, 0 pesos, whatever the exchange rate is, that telco regulatory, in order to recognize the SIM on a network, taxes become applicable right away. So you could have a $0 plan that has to pay a tax in certain countries. Mexico, Brazil, looking at you guys. But if you're the provider, if you're the solution, if you're the OEM, like, you should know these things and avoid the surprise. Because at the end of the day, if you're shipping things down there, a regulatory tax are not going to stop you. But anyway, I think we just make it complex because we like, we remain relevant if things are really difficult.
Well, a lot of it probably has to do with the fact that there is no we. It's not we. It's a bunch of individual interests, whether it's governments or it's the operators themselves or it's the vendors. There's no friggin' we. And that's the problem. And then, the thing that you started off with is perfect, David. It's the economics of IoT. It's just there. I think it's just another set of economics, another set of problems to be solved that it's really difficult for the traditional cellular guys to really cope with. And so I think, don't you think that's like one of the reasons why? I mean, because you always hear our friends complain about how cellular is so difficult, for IoT.
Yeah, but the thing is,
it's like being on the same bush. You know what I'm saying?
Look, I'm going to say we, just to put me in the box. The reason we say that is because if I have an IoT widget that works, and Ryan and I, we discuss the solution, we like, hey man, we have the product fit here. Let me ship it to you. Here's where it breaks down a lot of times. If we're talking about IoT devices, that IoT device has to sit inside of something to sense whatever the thing is. I don't care what it is. I don't care where you're tracking, where you're following. There has to be an install or a sticky or a magnet, something. And this is something that we don't talk about a lot, which is who is deploying these things. Like, I think we have good example. Like, if we were talking about telematics, well, everyone knows that part of the journey is someone is going to have to access that vehicle to deploy and install and provision the thingy. But when we're just talking about asset tracking in general, and maybe you're tracking plastic crates that take apples from one of Rob's orchards in the beautiful state of Washington. Well, where are the economics of these 1,000 units that you just sold, where they have to be shipped somewhere? So, someone's got to pick it up. And how many people are going to be there to properly not only do the install, but then the naming convention that this device went onto this crate times 1,000. Who's doing that? You want the end customer to do it? The guy that you just sold this thing to? He's busy. So anyway, this we don't talk about enough. The costs of the rollout, the cost of deployment, and if we want to laugh about it, what happens when there's an issue with the device in the field after deployment?
Yeah.
Who is going to touch that?
We talked about that 400 episodes ago, right?
Well, we did.
Yeah.
We
We did for 1 hour.
We have the friggin' plumber episode. That's what the plumber episode is all about.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like pretending that it's all about like tiny little, sensors and devices, and that you can discount the rest of the effort that goes into realizing a solution. Yeah, no matter how like small and narrow it is, right? Which could be highly valuable, but that's it's that perception problem. And you see it all the time. And Rob, now that he's formerly an analyst, he's getting an earful of this stuff, right? I'm sure that now,
Earful.
at this point, are you at this point now appreciating what analysts do?
Too soon.
Well, now that I'm an analyst, I'm about to be picked up in a limo to go over to McCarran Airport. So I guess that's what it is. It's basically like lots of flying around, talking to executives one-on-one, blah, 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 writing stuff, sounding intelligent. But you know what I really think it is? I think we're part of the marketing department of these companies.
No.
Ryan is shocked.
Say it ain't so.
Say that.
I don't know. I feel independent, like I've got my own voice, but I also feel like it's kind of like marketing, maybe. I don't know. I think these companies are rolling out the red carpet, hoping you'll say some nice stuff. And then it's going to on some billboard here in Vegas, created by ChatGPT. Look how awesome we are.
This expert said something we agree with. Bill.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm about to leave at the NetApp event, their Insight event at MGM Grand, And so for those of you who don't know, NetApp does storage.
Hyper-converged stuff. Yeah.
But like any other company, they need to make themselves seem more sexy, cooler, whatever. Storage doesn't sound very sexy, does it? No.
Oh my God, dude, they made sexy.
Amazon calls it the undifferentiated commonalities of the infrastructure. It's written, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Database. I have a database.
So, as you might imagine, at this event, we talked about, wait for it, AI.
No
way.
Yep. So lots of AI going into the storage. It turns out there's the data and it lands on a hard drive. And then you pick it up and you put it into the AI machine. And the AI machine goes, ding. The answer is 42. So it's all part of the deal. But and so the key thing is to make sure that you're not that undifferentiated, uninteresting stuff. So be faster.
Yeah.
Faster IOPS, all that stuff. Actually, I'll tell you, here's the big takeaway from the event for me. They focused on enterprise storage on-prem. They focused on how they're baked into cloud storage. Like it's actually their stuff with the hyperscalers. They talked about AI, of course, but the thing that my takeaway is security, ransomware, baked into their storage controllers. They have this whole ransomware detection thing built into it that detects it like instantly. Yeah. They're doing snapshots. They're keeping your data in secure vaults. it's pretty amazing. You could totally screw up as a company and not have enough protection in your firewalls and people clicking on stupid emails, stuff like that. I think that's the big selling point for NetApp storage is this built-in ransomware protection stuff. It's pretty impressive. It may not have even been the big message of the event. It might have been AI and other stuff, but I think it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
You don't get to do the cool stuff, the digital transformation, Industry 4, whatever you care about, if everything's screwed up down here at the bottom of the pyramid. And so that was my takeaway. And so I can imagine as a customer buying storage on-prem, wherever, all things being equal, maybe I would buy the one that has built-in ransomware protection. I don't know.
But
Yeah, the go-to-market strategy, it's completely different, right?
Mm-hmm. I think
Yeah.
it's
could I
You can
deploy
focus on
an
something
instance?
differential. Sorry.
yeah.
No,
You're right.
I was going to ask Rob if I could deploy an instance of this ransomware-proof infrastructure on a pager or a walkie-talkie.
Probably not.
Oh,
Well, it won't fit.
asking
Come on.
for a friend.
Asking for a friend. Yeah.
You were asking something serious, but I couldn't.
You should have asked a few months or years ago about that one, bro.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh, but going back to serious stuff, when you mentioned about speed, you said you mean first to market?
No, I meant performance of the storage itself. Like they make the storage arrays, flash arrays, and stuff like that. And so, everybody's how fast is your compute? And it's driven by your CPU, obviously NVIDIA GPUs. It's how much is in RAM, and then how fast are your hard drives, flash, SSD, things like that. And so they all kind of play a role, right? And so if we live in this world where we say data is the new oil, blah, 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 making sure that data can be retrieved super, super fast, I guess, is part of the experience, I would suppose. Yeah.
That matters in manufacturing, right? When you're looking at overall cycle time, it can be a direct cost driver, right?
Sure.
If you have a lot of overhead, say you make 1 million widgets a year, and then every time you cycle the machine or you try to run an algorithm, it's adding a second of overtime of overhead on that for time, right? That's a huge impact on bottom line there.
Yeah.
So folks, speed is your friend. We used to say that on the submarine. Speed is your friend.
Yeah.
They also say that on airplanes. Your ability to stay aloft or not fall to the bottom of the ocean. Lift.
Your friend.
Hydrodynamics, aerodynamics, going faster helps you stay aloft or not on the ocean floor 20,000 leagues under the sea. I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm going to go get into my limo to go to the airport. It's been really nice hanging with you guys. And I really want to say thank you to Ryan for having me on his ISA AI ML Edge event that preceded this event that we're on now. And I'm sure he has more to say about that. So,
Yeah.
adios.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob. It was great having you.
It was fun.
Safe travels. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian, so I'll stir the pot right away. So I love the example that you gave with, I have a machine, I have making these widgets, there's a cycle time, and I want to introduce, data ops, ML, AI, for optimization. And as a result of that is going to add a little bit of time, which at scale, now it's taking longer for my widget. So clear explanation. Why, as an industry, do we struggle with such a simple concept of speed? Because when you explained it, I am thinking storage speed. I am thinking system to system transfer of data, like from a machine to a PLC to a business system. But this is something that someone will be listening to this in an hour, and they'll go, oh, network latency, 6G, Wi-Fi 79. When it's like, dude, we're not moving anything. This thing is moving from over here, and the line is over here, but you can't see it because it's off camera. Why? Is it because a lack of industrial expertise, and we always think network, speed is network, not storage? Why do we still have these arguments?
I think it comes down to when you're in manufacturing, they tend to run everything into the ground, right? So you'll go into facilities and there'll be 100-year-old machine, and they're like, yeah, works great. We just add some oil, a little oil here,
Never
place some
fail.
bolts, fasten it down, right? These things are built to last, and that's amazing, right? But I think the issue comes where they don't know the full stack of how that data is being transported. So you have cycle time at the machine, and that's dependent on your sensor data, on your PLC scan time, and things like that. I think there's a lot of people who understand that really well, but where I think it starts to get fuzzy is when you introduce things like a Kepware, for protocol or conversion, and then edge applications, and then not understanding that you're running it on a server from 15 years ago, and now your processor speed, and then you have old software versions running that are adding this second and a half to where there might be newer hardware and software that can shave that second. So say the total process is maybe 8 seconds to cycle the machine, transfer data to this edge application, maybe pull an AI API nowadays, and then come back, right? I think a lot of people are so focused. It's funny that you mentioned that too, because I've seen this, right? Is they don't understand where that bottleneck is when it comes to the overall architecture. And so they'll focus and be like, 6G solves all my problems. Well, you're shaving milliseconds off in this area, and you're investing so much money into that infrastructure and everything, when really it's a software/server hardware overhead, and you could get that efficiency gain at a fraction of the cost, right? So I think they don't really understand the full stack when they're out there for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I see that everywhere. I see this everywhere where there's a complete lack of holistic thinking. Everyone is so fixated on their little bit, and that's why like companies like NVIDIA are killing it, because they're looking at the system holistically, or system of systems holistically, or cluster of clusters holistically, and looking at how do we drive, number one, scale, number two, optimization and efficiency that is absolutely competitive and differentiated. And that's how you get there, by thinking and looking at things holistically. But then, most everyone else, especially, and I'm going to harp on the open communities here, people who just stick too closely to the open religion of any variety, whether open source or open standards or whatever, they get so mired in that kumbaya, overhead. They can never get there. And they're typically focused so narrowly on things. They just don't, they struggle with the holistic vision. But more importantly, from a governance standpoint, being able to herd all the cats so that you can, those cats can collectively run as fast as, the likes of NVIDIA or Apple or whoever else that has this holistic strategy, thinks about systems and ultimately, value and experiences in a holistic way, right? And that's why, like IoT is also kind of funny, because it's only one, you could argue that it's just one layer in a stack, right? Mm-hmm. Or a solution discussion. And think about what the IoT community has, struggled with so hard for all these years, is finding, solution relevancy and being able to emulate something like what NVIDIA has done, what Apple has done, and, to any degree, right? So anyway, just throw that out there.
It makes it tough, right? Because I think IoT is all about the biggest value in IoT to me is going to be from a sensor instrumentation side. You have a problem. Yeah. What data points do you need to monitor, or what kind of process variables do you need to monitor? And then IoT is a nice way to aggregate all of that into one place. And then, so it's solving networking challenges, it's solving data source problems. There's a tendency to standardize on one type of sensing device. So all of your data is a lot easier to manage. You're not doing different dints and cents and all these different data formats, right? So yeah, I think a lot of people struggle in IoT when it comes to that because they don't know the root cause analysis of the problem, so they don't know the correct instrumentation to specify for.
Well, it also sounds like some of the customers you deal with, right? They don't see it. You're talking about speeds and feeds. They think of it in terms of, some folks might think of it in terms of like a network bottleneck or compute IO. But you have to think of all those things in concert and consider the dependencies and what sort of impact it has on overall system performance, right? Reliability, everything else, right? All those other, non-functional factors. So, Marc?
I don't know. First, you mentioned about these open source, open whatever Kumbaya thing. I didn't get it, so I wanted to ask you about give me an example because I don't understand. And then
Open RAN.
I think it's more the. I was speaking with a friend who was working on an IoT project for a training company, and what he mentioned is that they stopped all IoT projects because there was not like a solid business case in any of the projects that they had.
Yeah.
So I think as well that we need to put the business on there as a part of the equation. It's not only to see when you say look at the project on this holistic way. I think the holistic needs to include as well the business case.
Yeah.
Because you could simplify, reduce the friction, and get the data in a millisecond on your phone if you need it, or on ChatGPT or whatever. But if it doesn't help you to
this wouldn't be an IoT Coffee Talk episode if Leonard did not poo-poo on open source something.
Well, no,
it's there.
Well, let's go to the open source thing if you want.
I dig it. It's just don't wait for these things, and don't overrepresent their benefits, because there's trade-offs, right? Open source is not magic. It's not like generative AI. Generative AI is not magic. There's a lot of hard work that goes into open standards, open source, open technologies, blah blah blah. It's challenging. It's challenging to get to some form of consensus so that there's a roadmap and a direction everyone agrees that they'll go forward with. And then there's challenges in making it industrial, consumer, and XYZ grade, right? Technology itself and standards, they don't do anything, right? It's the implementation and the applications that are important. And all these things to do is either enable or they guide the implementation, right? Standards have a purpose because they standardize the implementation, so there's interoperability and blah blah blah, all these nice features of open. But you can't forget the alignment to standards and let's call it the industry, consumer, blah 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 grade implementations of these technologies. That takes somebody or a collection or a collective of folks to ensure that happens, so that open technology is viable. Without that additional effort, which is what a proprietary software company or technology company does, that overhead, it doesn't disappear, right? It's still a cost factor, right? You can have open, free stuff, right? But is it usable, right? In a actual consumer product, a enterprise product, a industrial product.
I don't know what you mean by free stuff. I don't know if you mean open source technology.
All the time, dude. They go, open source, it's free.
But that's not free. I mean, you need to pay for the server.
You know how many times I hear that crap, though? Then why do so many people say that it's free. I'm just saying. I'm not. I agree with you.
You say what you hear.
Well, everything I'm saying is this stuff is not really free.
Well, but let's give like an example. You mentioned Open RAN. I'm not expert on that side, but let's look at, for example, MQTT, right?
Yeah, or Node-RED maybe, Marc. I see, right?
Yeah. But
so you can choose the alternative, which is closed source or a private product, which you get locked into that. And it's really hard to go. And then, as happened on Google, that they stop the service, etc., you have a problem. Or then you go on open source, and you can even manage it yourself if you have a team and the business case actually makes sense that you invest money there. But I never say that it's free. It's open source; it's not free at all.
But you know what? I do hear the lock-in thing all the time, but it seems like the vendors care about that more than the actual buyers. Like, for instance, Open RAN. Yeah, the vendor community jumped on this whole, it's going to be multi-vendor and blah, blah, blah. Guess what? Most of the operators are going single vendor Open RAN. Oh, what happened there is because the operators don't care about lock-in and all this stuff. They do want to have some flexibility.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's going to boil down to, hey, can I at least have a manageable set of APIs and some plugins within each of these systems where I can have an orchestrator, I can plug into an orchestrator and management platform. That's all I need. I don't give a shit because my portfolio is heterogeneous. I got all kinds of crap. I don't know who the hell is this person imagining that I'm going to spend a crap ton of money making everything according to this architecture, right? When now, if you look at what, let's say, for instance, what NVIDIA is doing with AI RAN, they're proposing, let's go back to proprietary full stack, CUDA-based RANs for the future of the RAN.
Dude, but
so going from distributed architecture to more of a centralized, right? I mean,
dude, the thing is, like, there's open and then there's open. The whole bit with telco is that the whole Open RAN thing. Well, it for sure made it way more flexible. There was a level of interoperability in there that was great. But dude, how do you bring and let's make the jump from telco to enterprise? What happens when you have the most amazing piece of code, open everything, interoperability, you bring it in, and what's at the bottom? Legacy.
Yeah.
Then what? Then how good is this open stack when I got to talk to a monolith buried in a cave with an IBM?
I mean, now you're converting, right?
Yeah. So now I've got, how do I, it's tough. And, I've always loved what Rakuten did in Japan, where it's like, they went really natively with this whole open everything and it worked out. But guess what? No legacy. They didn't pick up Ericsson, Huawei, Nokia, Samsung kit from the 1800s.
Yeah, but here's the other thing, dude. Also, because I know Tarek. I was talking to him at the very beginning of all this stuff. He didn't wait. You got to remember, he didn't wait for open. Open wasn't ready. He just said, "I'm going to just do it." Mm-hmm. And he actually, the work that they did at Rakuten Mobile actually informed Open, because he's the only guy with a semi, whatever, sort of what looks like an open RAN network.
Yeah, but back to your comment, Leonard, of like, carriers that want to go single vendor again. It's nuts.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is Rakuten didn't tune into that because they drank the open Kool-Aid, thinking that, telling everybody, along with the Open RAN community, the most important thing was multi-vendor. It turns out operators don't give a crap about. So, we're talking about telco here, but this is a really great example for the IoT community to learn from, right? And it's an absolutely unappreciated, no one's focused on this analysis, this what we're talking about right now. What they do is they're making excuses for why things didn't turn out.
But it depends who is the buyer. If the buyer is the marketing department, that's one thing. If it's the IT department, it's another complete product, right? That you will buy.
And look, another thing, so let's say also something positive that's happening. Here's the thing. I think the folks that are delivering value, therefore making money with IoT, are those system integrators that have put their ear to the ground. And I'm gonna take some words out of Ryan's mouth. Mm-hmm. Are experts in instrumentation. So when you're talking about a business problem that sounds like it's a data acquisition issue built on top of legacy, and a system integrator knows, hey, there are these 3-4 brands that make great instruments. And I know these couple of protocols where I can use the instruments to get data acquisition. And I know these couple of platforms that will just integrate onto your business backend. But for the customer, they're buying a consultancy and a solution. They're not going, brand 1, 2, 3 of hardware and protocol translation 1, 2, 3 of choice. And IoT, they're not. And those guys are making a killing, and rightfully so. And Marc, they don't have a marketing department and I don't know if it's the same across the pond, but here, the industrial control system integrators, this is a word of mouth thing. Yeah. If you're the best guy to optimize the cycle count for a machine, that owner is going to tell the other owner 2 states away. That's how it is. These guys are not at Mobile World Congress. They are not at NetApp. They're not because there's no in the marketing department. There is no marketing department. So
they're usually in a field somewhere working out of a barn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
With overalls on.
Look, I'm from Michigan, right? I'm from Michigan, and I was working for different instrumentation sensor companies in that space. And to David's point, it was a lot of word of mouth. And I would go to these companies and I would drive through cornfields forever in Northwest Ohio. And there'd be a huge barn, right? But with that barn, there's fully automated machines and just like literally a guy in overalls that's like, yeah, I did this and I optimized the PLC scan time. And then I threw a machine vision sensor on here. And I'm like, what is happening? I don't know when he became Southern. I don't know where that
I don't know when you became Southern, man.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. But you get the picture, right? To David's point, they're not at the high-tech trade shows. They're just
you really do get
they're just guys working hard out of a barn somewhere. Yeah. That's where the expertise lies. And this is for Marc. I mean, consider how much. Who knows? But maybe calling a plumber to come out and check out your toilet, it doesn't cost that much in Barcelona, but it costs a hell of a lot here in the US. And this is why you have to watch IoT Coffee Talk, because in the plumber episode, we talked about that plumbers actually make more than the folks in the IoT. I mean, these guys, some of the richest people I know are friggin' plumbers, or not doctors, plumbers, people who own like friggin' plumbing companies, and keysmiths.
Oh,
I'm serious, dude.
There will be an analysis 20 years from now giving us credit for driving the movement of the trades back in America. Okay, IoT Coffee Talk. Nothing wrong with being a plumber, an electrician.
Gosh.
The cabinets we're making. I mean, like
welder, right?
Thank you, sir.
Hard skills.
Yes. And I know, Ryan has got a marketing budget from the Walt back there, because I see the black and yellow gear. If Ryobi is listening, if Hilti is listening, help the man out. He needs more drills.
Yeah. why don't you drop some sponsorships? You know, it's for the kids. DeWalt, we got a drill here. We got a drill. It's, you know, just toss a few grand. The kids need laptops, okay?
There you go.
Yes, please.
There you go. We'll have to call them out.
Hashtag DeWalt.
And the folks at Adidas too. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
I know you have nothing to do with IoT, but I'm sure that you use them in your factories wherever they're located, right? So
Yeah. The kids.
Honestly.
China and Vietnam.
So yeah,
It's
man.
tough. It's tough to monetize. You're right. There's a lack of trades from the bottom up, and that's where a lot of the issues are happening, right?
It's a lot of people coding, and it's like, what does your code do if it never gets deployed? You know, what does your infrastructure do if no one actually goes out and installs it? And then, you know, how do you ever sell anything if nobody explains to anybody why all of this stuff matters? And, you know, I mean, man, guys, after all these years, we've been doing this for more than 4 years. We're going to go on 5 years of doing this show. People are still talking the same thing, but I do have to give a shout out to Vinke and the guys at Things Industries, and the Things conference is going on now. I would have loved to have been there, but the friggin' guys at TM Forum changed their schedule and had their digital transformation world event in June instead of around now, where I could have, you know, double dipped on the travel, right, in terms of, or killed two birds with one stone. But yeah, you know, it's you know, one of the things he and I talked about, because we tried to do this podcast in you know, with the Vision Pro in the metaverse. It didn't turn out. It was wacky. But it was a great discussion. But the gist of our talk was how the conversation has changed over time with the things industry, right? And where they are right now, where they're talking a lot more about, you know, projects and value and think, you know, more of the holistic solution sell, but then also, you know, getting past just the widgets and the connectivity and that I think it's kind of cool to watch that trend. And, you know, Marc, you're probably well aware about how all that has transitioned over time, you know, in terms of the thinking.
I think the market is maturing, right? It's getting more mature, but it's still very small. So I don't think, it's gonna. The good thing is that as it's getting more mature, the next million of devices will, like the sensors, will be deployed more quickly.
Yeah.
But it's a very niche technology. On the other hand, I don't know. It depends on the big projects, on logistics, smart metering, and probably something else. I think these projects that actually have these huge numbers, right, are the ones who will drive this technology. On the other hand, I think it's super interesting that the things industries find they moved from an open source project to like a SaaS solution.
Yeah,
and they are helping a lot to build private networks, right, that solve a problem for a specific companies. So they find who are their target audience, right, and they could basically talk to this target audience and convince them that that they can use the things in.
So Plug and Winky, you know, I just looked it up. They just released an indoor router, right? We always talk about, you know, in the context of cellular and LP1 IoT, how difficult it is sometimes to get good quality actionable data from indoors, and they just released something for just that, which I think is pretty cool. So to Marc's point, there has to be a set of customers that prove this out before those guys set out to, you know, produce a new SKU for indoor connectivity. So someone bought it. You know, there's money there. Otherwise, they wouldn't have released that piece of kit.
Yeah, but it's a tricky technology as well, because, for example, you cannot use it for really important sensors. Safety
and critical.
Exactly. Critical infrastructure. So this technology is not ready for that. So it's a very specific niche, right? So yeah, it's a tricky solution. Having said that, I think that they proved that the solution work thanks to the community that they built and the open source solution, right? So they demonstrate to everyone that the things industries and the things network was something that was working, was solid, and basically did the work, so they could prove.
Well, here's another nugget. It is absolutely okay to go into an environment where lives are at stake, mostly industrial sites, and tell the customer, listen, this is not here to replace critical infrastructure. You should absolutely not treat this as a critical part of your business because, we have these reliability issues down the line. However, it could enhance some sort of safety procedure where it could be a first warning system, right? And so it's okay if they're not critical. So yes, folks, do not run your PLC connectivity through. Not going to work, but there are things that again, it could just be like an overlay and enhance and bring a bit of value if the infrastructure is already there in the first place. What's the example we always use? Evacuation, right? All these sites have procedures of how to exit the building in an event of an emergency. So I would say, all things being equal, if there's good IoT coverage indoors, later, Marc, te cuidas. It's not a simple, it'll be a simple thing to have like a widget at the ID level. And all it does is that in the event of an emergency, I can say, I've got 2 humans still in there. And, and if it's Ryan and David, well, they're usually at station 17 and 18. Let the first responders know. Like that is a non-critical application that, again, if you have the infrastructure, what are we talking about? We can probably buy this thing for, and I'm not talking about an expensive AirTag. I'm talking about a sub $8 3-year battery life thing that I put on my badge and I forget about. Yeah. Anyway, that's the example that, this caffeine made me think about.
It's a great one. It's, I think a lot of use cases in IoT I run into, a lot of people like addressing safety concerns, but to Marc's point is sometimes the applications, it's not able to get that time of response time locally. So if you're looking at trying to, do a safety light curtains connected to a machine, those are like millisecond response times. Because if there's a blade or something that's coming down, it needs to stop it before milliseconds count there, right? Yeah. But in this case, you're still able to do a safety application where it's not a time critical millisecond, right? And the other key part of that is the interfacing, right? How are you deploying this? Like, do you have to have them wear a wrist strap, right? They're not going to remember to wear a wrist strap to work every day. No, but if they have something like a badge already, you stick it on the back, they're going to have that no matter what, or they're not getting in the building.
So two things. First of all, no one really has made any, outside of the help I've fallen and I can get up things for the elderly.
Yeah.
No one makes money on these safety applications because that's just, yes, it is a focus, but the way you increase safety is not through this. But the flip side is that if you're deploying an IoT solution for something that there's a solid business case, and you can say, hey, oh, by the way, your guys carry badges, lanyards, they're swiping. If you add this little thing and you just glue it there, you gain this thing. People would say, yes, why not? So the first comment. Second comment, all companies that have a safety evacuation procedure, even though it's manual, right? It's kind of like, hey, we've got the 6 green spots in the parking lot, and then there's a leader that's going to count, how many people. It's a very manual thing. I think will be a great tool, not a tool to use every day, just a tool that management would say, hey, we have an evacuation thing. We have a thing. And this is the only time I've been wanting to look at this, because all I want to know, who's in, who's out, and who's in, where are they, right? So in a way, we don't need to integrate this data stream onto a backend. No, that would be a waste. It's more of, you said you have an emergency situation, and that triggered in a report by exception way. Now you trigger this data to be sent somewhere.
Yeah.
That would be a decent implementation of it.
Yeah. It's like low velocity, low fidelity visibility.
We don't need milliseconds. I need 30 seconds to let Ryan know that, he's in the bathroom and he doesn't know we have an emergency. And I just like, dude, you got to wrap it up right now, baby.
Yeah.
Get out.
Well, for any wireless stuff that is high fidelity, high velocity type stuff, like all the critical industrial things that you guys are talking about, it's expensive. It costs a lot to implement. There's a lot of compute involved. There's a lot of interference you have to manage.
On the higher end, but if you talk to the risk management folks, I mean, we don't usually talk about it, but there is a price per accident. There is a number assigned to us losing a thumb or losing a hand in a machine. So when those folks are involved and you have almost like executive support, people do make investments in not only safety training, but also safety systems. But again, they're just not sexy. So no one is going to the Safety System Conference of the Americas.
Right.
No one's going to do that.
This episode sponsored by Life Alert.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it's a good chat. Hey, I think we got to wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up.
But Ryan, great to see you, man. Glad
thank you.
on. Great discussion. And
all right, folks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's about that time you've made it yet to another episode of IoT Coffee Talk, which means you, human, are resilient because you're here ingesting all this information. So what do we talk about today? Well, AI, because we kind of have to, but we dumb it down over here to let you know what's really happening. Talked about safety systems, remind you not to make financial decisions based on any of the information you hear. And we got some plugs out to some, OEMs that are going to sponsor our charity, which is, elevateourkids.org. We're trying to close the digital divide. The billions of dollars of funding that this podcast gets, it all goes over there. So please participate. And with that, remember to subscribe, follow, like, screenshot, and tell your friends. And if you have any open RAN discussions that you want to bring up, we are the place to have it. So with that, stay safe, and we'll see you next week on another episode of IoT Coffee Talk. Peace out.